It started with a single name, Jesus, spoken on stage by Elon Musk, and the tech world held its breath. Mark Zuckerberg's eyes widened, visibly shaken. The stage lights dimmed for a second, not intentionally, but the timing felt divine. Elon didn't flinch. He leaned into the mic and said it again. Jesus. Zuckerberg, who had rehearsed smiles for 1,000 public moments, suddenly looked like he'd forgotten how to breathe. His hands clenched. The silence was deafening. This wasn't in the script. This wasn't in any press release. Elon's voice broke the moment, not to pitch a product, but to name a savior. Some things, Elon said, are bigger than algorithms. And just like that, Mark blinked back what could only be described as tears. The cameras caught it. Millions watched. A mogul known for code confronted by a name that had nothing to do with coding. It wasn't a debate. It wasn't even a confession. It was an echo of something eternal coming through a man of science. Zuckerberg looked down. His hands trembled slightly. Elon hadn't attacked. He'd witnessed. And that was what made the moment break through the noise. In a world where belief often gets buried beneath data, someone dared to speak the name above all names. And it moved the one man no one thought could be moved. Before we continue, we'd love to hear from you. Where are you watching from? Drop your location in the comments below, and be sure to like, share, and subscribe for more inspiring stories. Elon stood frozen in the hallway, watching his son walk past with purpose. The child didn't look left or right. He walked like he already knew something. Jesus told me a secret, echoed in Elon's mind. Not just the words, but the weight. It didn't sound like imagination. It felt like a mission. X sat on the floor, cross-legged, humming a tune Elon had never heard before. It wasn't childish. It was ancient, repetitive, like a chant from centuries ago. Elon asked gently, "What did he say, buddy?" But X didn't answer. He only smiled and pointed to the ceiling. "You already know, Daddy. He told you too." Elon laughed nervously, but inside, something cracked. What was this feeling? A strange mixture of awe and fear. Not fear of danger, but fear of truth. Later that morning, Elon found himself sitting in the garden where X had been. The apple still lay there. One bite, perfectly preserved. But the ants wouldn't touch it. A storm brewed in the distance, but the garden was still. The birds had stopped singing. Even nature seemed to be holding its breath. Grimes called Elon inside. She said X wasn't eating, just sitting by the window, whispering to someone. When she asked who, he replied, "The man with the crown." Elon's breath caught. "What crown?" he asked. X didn't blink. "The one with thorns." He said not to be afraid of the fire. "It's not for us." Elon didn't sleep that night. Not because of nightmares, but because every time he closed his eyes, he heard his son's voice say, "You already know." Elon's fingers trembled as he replayed the moment over and over. A crown of thorns? Fire that isn't for us. These weren't things a 5-year-old says. He opened his Bible, the one he kept hidden behind Tesla manuals. He hadn't touched it in years. But tonight, the pages opened themselves. Literally. To Matthew 18. "If you do not become like children," the verse stared back. Elon stared. Harder. It felt like God was speaking through his son, like X had unlocked a doorway. Tesla engineers noticed a shift. Elon seemed quieter, slower, like he was listening to something they couldn't hear. He canceled meetings with NASA and prayed in his office. Grimes asked him what was happening. He couldn't explain. He only said, "I think X is seeing something we've forgotten how to see." The media had no idea. They were too busy speculating about a new rocket. But behind the scenes, the Real launch had already begun inside Elon. At night, X would draw strange symbols. A ladder, a sheep, a single eye over a wave. Every morning, the drawings disappeared on their own. Elon tried recording X's whispers, but the audio always came out silent, except for one whisper. "He knows you're listening. That's why he's quiet right now." The silence became louder than any noise. And for the first time, Elon Musk, The man chasing Mars started chasing something deeper, something eternal. Because when a child starts speaking in riddles about Jesus, you don't ignore it. Not when the riddles start becoming reality. Point 1. Morning. X ran to Elon holding a crayon drawing. "This is the ship," he said. But it wasn't SpaceX. It had wings. And a cross. The picture looked simple until Elon noticed something chilling. The landscape below the ship was burning. Cities crumbling. But the ship flew upward into light. Elon showed it to his AI team. They dismissed it as child's imagination. But one engineer pulled him aside and whispered, "I dreamed the same thing last night." By noon, the drawing vanished. Elon blamed housekeeping, but no one had touched it. The fridge door hadn't even been opened. He said it wasn't meant to stay, X said. Grimes began to worry. Is he okay? Is this psychological? Elon shook his head. It's not a breakdown. It's a breakthrough. That night, Elon asked X, "Who is Jesus to you?" X answered softly, "He's the one who lets me borrow light when it's too dark." The sentence hit Elon like a meteor. Borrow light. What 5-year-old says that? He stared at his son like he was seeing him for the first time. He started writing things down. Not for a book. Not for press. For himself. "Because I'm forgetting who I am," he whispered. The drawing may have vanished, but the image stayed burned in Elon's mind. A ship with wings. A cross. And the fire below. He began to ask the unthinkable. What if the mission was never Mars? What if it was always heaven? The next morning, X left a note on Elon's pillow. "Don't forget the ladder." No drawing. Just words. Written in shaky crayon lines. Elon stared at it for hours. A ladder? To where? Or from where? He didn't ask. He didn't want to ruin the mystery. He took the note to a friend who was once a pastor. The man read it and whispered, "That's Jacob's ladder." From Genesis. That night, Elon dreamed. A ladder made of fire. Angels going up and down. X stood at the bottom, holding the same half-eaten apple. Elon woke up shaking. But the paper note was gone. Not under the pillow. Not in the trash. He took it back, X said. "You don't need it anymore." He canceled a shareholder meeting. People were angry. Stocks dipped. But Elon didn't care. He was chasing a different kind of return now. At a board meeting, he said it out loud. "We might be building the wrong ladder." Silence followed. They thought it was metaphor. It wasn't. Grimes recorded a video of X singing in his room. No music. No instruments. Just words. "I saw the man again. He says the ladder is inside." Elon stopped chasing answers. He started following questions. And every question led back to X. And every X pointed to Jesus. The ladder wasn't physical. It was spiritual. And Elon was finally ready to climb it. Not with rockets, but with faith. The room was quiet. Not the usual electric buzz of the Joe Rogan Experience. Elon Musk sat with X beside him, oddly still. Too still. Joe leaned forward, smirking. "So, Elon, heard your son speaks to Jesus?" A joke. But Elon didn't laugh. He only nodded slowly. "Yes." And he speaks back. Joe raised an eyebrow. "Seriously?" Elon didn't blink. "He told me a secret that wasn't his to keep. It's why I agreed to this interview." That's when X whispered, loud enough. "For the mic. Tell them, Daddy. They're listening. Not just the audience. Something else. Someone else." The producer made a throat-cutting gesture off camera. Elon ignored him. Jesus told X about a fire coming. But he also showed him the door through it. Joe went silent. This wasn't weed-fueled speculation. This wasn't Neuralink. This was something else. Raw, unpolished faith on the most downloaded podcast in the world. X pulled out a small notebook. It wasn't a Bible, but the verses inside weren't written by him. Elon claimed. He said they just appear. One verse read, "The loudest truth comes from the quietest voice." Joe stared at it like it was a code he'd never crack. Elon looked up and said, "I built rockets to escape Earth. But he showed me we're not meant to escape. We're meant to return." And in that moment, Joe Rogan, speechless, for once, just nodded. Because He wasn't listening to Elon Musk anymore. He was listening to something bigger. After the episode, Joe said, "I don't know if I should post this." Elon replied softly, "It wasn't for views. It was for whoever needs it." The footage corrupted twice. Cameras glitched. Mics muted. But one file remained. The moment X whispered the word return, and everything went quiet. Rogan's team tried to edit it, but every time they cut something, the audio scrambled. It was as if something didn't want it touched. Then it aired, unfiltered. No intro, no outro, just Elon, X, and an hour of otherworldly stillness. Comments flooded in. I felt something. This healed me. I cried. X became a name not just known, but felt. People said they dreamed of a child in white, offering them a ladder. Every dream ended with return. Joe said, "This wasn't an episode. This was a message." Elon just replied, "You were the antenna." He used your platform like a loudspeaker. Elon no longer chased viral moments. He chased silence. Because it was in silence that X spoke most clearly, and in silence that Jesus answered. The podcast made headlines. Musk goes spiritual. Elon believes again. Faith and fire. The Musk interview you can't unsee. But none of that mattered, because the ones who needed to hear it did. And for Elon, that was enough. The podcast didn't end careers. It began callings. And for Joe, for Elon, for X, there was no going back. Only forward. Only deeper. Elon drove without destination. X had fallen asleep in the back. The city lights faded behind him. Only stars remained. And a silence too large for Earth. He parked in the desert. No cameras. No security. Just him, a Bible, and the ghost of a question he'd avoided too long. What am I running from? The answer didn't come in thunder. It came in a line from Matthew he hadn't read since college. "Come to me, and I will give you rest." He sobbed. Not loudly, not dramatically, but like someone whose engine had finally stalled after years of pretending it didn't need fuel. He whispered, "Why me?" And X, still asleep, mumbled from the back seat, "Because you asked." Elon froze. The boy wasn't awake, but the voice was real. That night, he slept in the Cybertruck. No dreams, just peace. A kind of quiet heat, only read about in ancient scriptures. The kind that heals. He woke up to a sunrise that felt personal, as if heaven had painted it just for him. And maybe it had. In that truck, under those skies, Elon gave up something. Not his companies, not his money, but his pride. He laid it down like a crown. When he returned home, he looked different. Not younger, not older, just lighter. Like a man who had finally exhaled. And for the first time in years, Elon Musk wasn't searching anymore. He was following. Elon hadn't stepped foot in a church in decades. He called it myth with architecture. But this morning, X said, "We need to go to his house." They arrived at a small chapel in a forgotten corner of Los Angeles. No press, no fans, just chipped paint and silent pews. X didn't walk. He ran to the altar, and when he touched it, the lights flickered. Elon's hands trembled. "Are we trespassing?" he asked. X shook his head. "He's home." An old pastor walked in, didn't say a word, just smiled and placed a dusty Bible in Elon's hands. "We've been waiting." Elon asked how he knew. The pastor replied, "We prayed for you, the one who builds towers. Now you're building ladders." He laughed through tears. "I don't even know what I'm doing." The pastor grinned. "That's the first sign you're doing it right." X sang softly, a hymn from nowhere. Elon recognized it, not from childhood, but from a dream he once forgot. Amazing Grace. He sat down in the back row. Not to be seen, not to lead, just to listen. Because for once, Elon wasn't the smartest man in the room. The sermon was simple. Faith begins where control ends. Elon didn't need deep theology. He needed surrender. And this was it. He left with nothing in his hands, but more in his heart than any launch or IPO had ever given him. They watched the sky together. No phones, no cameras, just father and son on a hill, like Abraham and Isaac, but this time, no fear. Only wonder. X said, "Do you know why you made rockets?" Elon chuckled. "To explore." X shook his head. "To realize Earth isn't home. But heaven is." Elon looked up. "Can we build a ship to get there?" X smiled. "We don't need to build it. It's already coming." He paused. "It doesn't run on fuel. It runs on faith." Elon said nothing. Because when truth hits, silence is the only honest reply. The sunset painted a cross in the clouds. Not clearly, not perfectly, but undeniably. Elon blinked. "Are you seeing this?" X nodded. "He said you would." For years, Elon chased galaxies. But on this hill, he saw the real destination. One without coordinates. One you reach with surrender, not science. He didn't care about market caps or timelines. He only cared that his son knew something he forgot, and that it wasn't too late to remember. X held his hand. He said, "We're already on the ladder. Just keep climbing." Elon didn't ask how. He already knew. They sat until night swallowed. The sky. No stars. No moon. Just the quiet hum of hope between father and son. And in that moment, Elon Musk didn't feel like a billionaire. He felt like a believer. And that was worth more than anything that he didn't plan to. But something about the room, the stillness, the weight of centuries of prayers, made him whisper, "Jesus, are you really there?" He expected silence. Instead, X stood, walked over, and placed his hand on Elon's shoulder. "He's already answered. He's just waiting for your voice." Elon laughed softly, nervously. "I've never prayed before." "Not seriously," X whispered. "Then this will be your first real invention. Speak." And so he did. Not eloquently. Not perfectly. But sincerely. "I don't know how to do this, but I'm tired of doing things alone." For a man who had spoken on world stages, this was the hardest sentence he'd ever said. But it was also the most freeing. He prayed for his kids. For direction. For forgiveness. For the strength to unbuild what his pride had created. And to rebuild with humility. Tears fell, not from emotion, but from release. Like years of control melting into trust, one fragile word at a time. The pastor didn't approach. No choir played. No spotlight came. And that was the miracle. God came without cameras. When he stood up, Elon wasn't different. But something inside him was. And X looked up, smiling. "You didn't build a prayer. You gave one." That night, Elon tweeted nothing. He posted nothing. He only left a note on his bedside. He listens. Even to me. He started writing them late at night. Not emails. Not tweets. Just quiet, handwritten letters beginning with, "Dear Jesus." The first one was stiff. "I don't understand faith." The second softer. "I want to." By the fifth, he wrote, "I'm starting to feel you." He hid the journal under blueprints. Because for a man of logic, these were his risks. His blueprints to belief. Some pages were just questions. Why? Me. What if I fail you? What if I'm not worth saving? All real. All raw. But between the doubt, hope bloomed. He wrote, "If you really love me, teach me to love like you, even when it doesn't make sense." He started drawing next to the words, stars wrapped in halos, rockets lifting crosses instead of satellites. And X would peek in, smile, and say nothing. It wasn't about being seen or understood. It was about being honest. And for the first time, Elon wasn't afraid of his own questions. One night, he tore a page out and left it on X's pillow. It simply read, "Thank you for believing before I did." That letter stayed under X's pillow for weeks. Elon saw. It crumpled one morning. And it reminded him, real messages don't need replies. The journal remains unfinished. Because the conversation hasn't ended. And that's the beauty of it. Faith is a dialogue, not a declaration. He stood outside SpaceX, watching his own rockets light up the sky. But lately, the launches didn't stir him. Something higher did. An engineer ran up. "We're ready, Elon." He nodded. But his eyes weren't on the pad. They were on the heavens behind it. He whispered, "All this Just to look up? X, holding his hand, replied, "No, Daddy. All this, so you could learn to kneel." The countdown began. But Elon wasn't counting anymore. He was remembering. A garden. A whisper. A boy saying Jesus told him a secret. The rocket lifted. But it wasn't his focus. Instead, he whispered, "Thank you for letting me build this, but more for helping me break." Faith didn't demand he abandon science. It demanded he stop worshiping it, to see it as a tool, not a throne. He turned to X and said, "I've never been this grounded before," while staring at the stars. The engineers celebrated. Cameras flashed. But Elon's celebration was silent. A private thank you, wrapped in the hum of peace. He used to want to reach Mars. Now, he just wanted to reach home. Not a planet. A promise. And in that moment, surrounded by steel and fire, Elon Musk finally understood what the psalmist meant. The heavens declare the glory of God. It was just a note. Dinner tonight. Just us. Jesus style. Signed, X. Elon smirked. Jesus style. He had no idea what was coming. He arrived to find X had prepared a long table. One chair for Elon. One for X. One left empty at the head. There was bread. Simple. Grape juice in mugs. A candle lit in the center. X said, this is how he shared stories. They broke bread. X read from Luke. He took bread, gave thanks and broke it. Elon froze. It wasn't just symbolic. It was sacred. Mid-meal, X said, I want you to meet him, Daddy. Not just know about him. Elon whispered, I think. I already have. They prayed. Not because they were told to, but because they wanted to. And somewhere between bites and verses, heaven sat with them. Elon asked, why an empty seat? X replied, it's not empty. You just can't see him yet. They laughed. They cried. They remembered. It wasn't just dinner. It was communion. Not religious. Relational. Elon washed the dishes without thinking and realized serving wasn't weakness. It was worship. That night, as X slept, Elon left a new note on the table. I set another plate. Come anytime. He didn't announce it. No press. No tweet. Just a quiet drive to the ocean at dawn. X in the back seat, humming. They walked barefoot to the shoreline. The water cold. The sky blushing with first light. Elon whispered, are you sure? X nodded. It's not about being perfect. It's about being willing. Elon exhaled. Then I'm ready. A local pastor met them. Quietly. No stage. No microphones. Just two hands and one question. Do you believe? Elon whispered, yes. I believe. He stepped in. The water welcomed him. The sun rose higher. And then, he went under. Died to pride. Raised into peace. No applause. Just the soft cry of seagulls and the echo of heaven whispering, mine. When he came up, he smiled. Not a performative smile. A real one. One that said, finally. X ran to him, hugging him tight. You're brand new, Daddy. Elon laughed, soaked. Feels like it. That morning didn't just wash away salt and sand. It washed away years of burden, ego, and empty ambition. And in that moment, Elon Musk wasn't reborn as a tech mogul, but as a child of God. The piano sat untouched for years. But this morning, X led him there. Try, he said. Just play what your heart hears. Elon placed his fingers hesitantly on the keys. He didn't know chords. But the melody came, soft, broken, honest. A prayer in sound. X opened the Bible beside him. Psalm 40, he whispered, reading aloud. He lifted me out of the slimy pit and gave me a song. And Elon wept while playing. Not for pain, but for how far he'd come from it. Each note, a goodbye to the man he used to be. He wasn't performing. He was surrendering. And that's why it was beautiful. The pastor walked by, paused, and didn't interrupt. Sometimes the deepest sermons aren't preached, they're played. Elon looked at his son. How did you know? I needed this. X just smiled. I didn't. He did. Later that evening, Elon recorded a few notes. Not for Spotify. For memory. For healing. For God. He titled the file Psalm 40 in D. Because it wasn't about the song, it was about the rescue. That day, Elon finally understood that even in silence, God gives melody. And when we let go, he plays us back to life. He hadn't been back in decades. The house in Pretoria felt smaller now. Or maybe he had grown in more ways than height. X stood beside him, holding a small wooden cross. It's not where you're from, he said. It's who you bring back with you. Elon touched the old wallpaper, the marks of his childhood drawings still faintly visible. This is where I learned to question everything. X replied, and now, you've learned where the answers come from. They sat in the living room, the silence thick with memories. Elon whispered, I wish I could tell my younger self. He'd be okay. The air shifted, like time paused just long enough for heaven to echo. Tell him now. So Elon closed his eyes and spoke to the boy he once was. You'll lose a lot, but what you'll gain will be eternal. Tears fell freely, not because of regret, but because of release. Sometimes healing doesn't look like medicine. It looks like going back. X took a photo beside the old fireplace. For our next visit, he smiled. Elon nodded. Next time, I'll bring more than memories. As they left, Elon whispered, Thank you for letting me return, not to remember who I was, but to see who you've made me. The church invited X to share his testimony. Elon came to support him. What he didn't expect was to be discipled by his son. X stepped up, small frame behind a big podium. He wasn't nervous. Today, he began, I'll talk about how Jesus speaks through kids. Elon chuckled. That's bold. But the room fell silent as X continued. Sometimes your father brings you into the world, and sometimes you help bring him into faith. Elon sat still, heart pounding. X wasn't just telling a story. He was living one, and it was being written by someone bigger than them both. X shared about that garden moment, the apple, and the whisper. And Elon wasn't embarrassed. He was proud of the child and the voice that chose him. He looked around. Adults were crying. Teens were silent. God had spoken, and it sounded a lot like a 5-year-old. X ended with this. God didn't ask me to be perfect, just willing. So I said yes. What about you? Afterward, Elon hugged his son tighter than he ever had. You're braver than I was at 40, he whispered. And X replied with a wink. That's because I know who's really talking. That night, Elon journaled one line. I used to build satellites. But today, I watched my son transmit heaven. They thought it would be another debate. AI ethics, the metaverse. But then Elon brought up something unexpected. Mark, have you ever prayed? Zuckerberg blinked, unsure if it was a joke. Elon leaned forward. I have. Not to the universe, but to someone who made it. The crowd shifted. Awkward silence. But Elon wasn't performing. He was testifying. He shared the story. The garden. The whisper. The baptism. And then he looked at Mark and said, I used to chase eternity with code. But now, he added, I chase it with faith. Mark's lip trembled. I used to mock people who said Jesus saves, Elon said, until I realized I couldn't save myself. Mark stood quiet, eyes glistening. Is he real? He asked, almost too softly. Elon smiled. He didn't need me to believe in him. But he waited anyway. The crowd was silent. For the first time, no applause. Just reverence. And in that stillness, a seed was planted. Later that night, Mark texted Elon 2 words, teach me. And Elon replied, he already is. It wasn't a mansion. It wasn't AI controlled. It was just a quiet home. But inside, something louder than algorithms spoke. Peace. Elon sat at the head of the table. Not as a CEO, but as a father, a brother, a servant. Before dinner, X stood and prayed. Thank you, Jesus, for showing up, even when we didn't know you were coming. The table clapped, not out of habit, but from holy gratitude. Afterward, Elon stood and read aloud. As for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. And for once, he didn't overthink it. He had chased Mars. mastered tech, broken barriers. But his greatest legacy wasn't in orbit. It was in that room. He didn't need followers. He needed faith. And now he had both, in the one who first followed him through his doubts. As the night closed, X whispered, "Are you happy?" Elon smiled. "I am, and I didn't build this." He did. In that final silence, before lights dimmed, Elon said, "I have one final invention. It's called surrender." And heaven whispered back, "Well done, good and faithful servant." What did this journey of faith and transformation mean to you? And how did it inspire your own reflections on belief? We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below, along with where you're watching from. If this story touched your heart, please consider subscribing to our channel, liking the video, and sharing it with others to spread the inspiration. Your support means the world to us.